Well, a lot of work went into making last year as special as it was for our 150th. 150 years doesn't come around too often. And a lot of work went into this next video that we're going to sit back and enjoy. Some greetings from some folks that you may recognize as well. So take a big deep breath and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Jay Gruters, son of Dr. Reverend Don Gruters. He was a minister there for, I believe, about 9 years, up through 1962. We lived at the parsonage at 4th and Pratt, just up from the old church. Memories of the place, it was a great place, good place to grow up. I especially loved the ice cream socials, where they had the ice cream and the homemade pies, especially the cherry pies. As a kid, that was great fun. I ended up in life doing stained glass, and I had the privilege of trying to rescue the old windows from the old church, that were just stored away and slowly crumbling. So we put them together and put them into the new church out in the hallways. And then later, I guess they had someone come in and really fix them up properly. I've probably through my experience and exposure to stained glass with the different churches, I ended up doing stained glass, not for a living, but for a hobby, and now for sort of a living. I've done a big window, about 25 windows for the local Catholic church, and working on another, about 18 window project for the same church. I've done some other windows, did a lot of custom windows over the years for people, and so it's surprising what you end up doing. The church in Longmont, my dad helped build that new church. It was quite an undertaking. And then I had the privilege of doing a 6-foot by 6-foot memorial window for him after he passed away. I didn't realize at the time how good he was at what he did. Typical kid. But in looking back and talking about him to people, I see what a really fine man he was and what he contributed there. So it's great memories of the place. I thank you for having me be part of it. Thank you.
I'm Hilton Martin, and my dad Billy and my mom Beatrice were at Longmont United Methodist Church, now Heart of Longmont United Methodist Church, from 1966 to 1972. Of all the places my mom and dad served, Longmont was absolutely one of their favorites. And they had many fond memories of Longmont, and they liked it so much that for a number of years my wife Liz and I lived in Longmont as well, and we were members of the church, and we have fond memories and dear friends in Longmont to this day. And both of our sons were born in Longmont and were baptized in Longmont by my dad. Actually, he came over from Fraser Meadows, where he was the administrator, to perform that. The memories I have of the church and my dad there are somewhat limited, because I was in college and then I was in the U.S. Army while they were in Longmont. My brother was there, but then he was in college and in the service as well. And so, but I have some very fond and interesting memories of the church from back then. one of the funniest situations was when Mother and Dad hadn't been to Longmont more than probably a month. And one Sunday night, the senior high MYF was meeting. And so my brother and I was a freshman in college at the time, between freshman and sophomore years, and we thought it'd be a good idea to go down to the church and meet the kids and we could make some friends. So we went down there. There weren't any adults there that night. There were a few kids, and somebody said, hey, you know, there's an old abandoned farmhouse out north of town, and town stopped at Mountain View and 17th, and that was about all. It was 17,000 people in town. But anyway, so we went down to this old abandoned farmhouse, and we were just looking around, not doing anything. I drove, and one of the cars, and all of a sudden the sheriff turned up. And apparently whoever owned that old farmhouse had called the sheriff and thought we were trespassing and we were vandalizing the place, which was not true. But anyway, so then the sheriff said, okay, since I was the oldest, he said, okay, what's your full name? And I told him Hilton Gates Martin, which is kind of unusual. And some of the kids started kind of snickering because it was kind of an unusual name. And the sheriff thought I was giving him an alias. So he got a little perturbed, and he took us all back to Longmont to the jail. So here we are on a Sunday night with the MYF, and we had to all call our parents, and they said, well, where are you? And they said, we're in jail. And some of the girls were crying. They thought their lives were over, and we weren't real pleased with having to tell Mother and Dad that we were in jail, but eventually it worked out, and the sheriff dropped everything, and everything was fine. But right out of the chute, for Mother and Dad, their sons had managed with the senior high MYF to end up in the Longmont jail. So that was kind of a funny happenstance. My dad was very active in the Lions Club in Longmont, so much so that when Liz and I moved back to Longmont a number of years later, I became active in the Lions Club as well. Every Thanksgiving, Dad would deliver a program, which was usually religious-based in some way. And so he stood up. He always had a great sense of humor, but he stood up and said, well, I'd like to know how many of you out there have read the book of Hezekiah in the Bible. And a number of the members in the church, including Carl Link, members of the Lions Club, raised their hands, said they had read the book of Hezekiah. And Dad said, well, that's kind of interesting because there is no such book. So he kind of reeled everybody in on that little joke, but he always had a joke of some kind that was always fun. My mom loved Longmont. She was involved in any number of organizations in Longmont. She always swore that Longmont had the best water in the world, so hats off to the water department in Longmont. But she thought it was great. But they both had wonderful times and wonderful friends there. So on the 150th anniversary of the church, I would like to congratulate the church on its longevity, and I hope it's around for another 150 years, and we look forward to maintaining our relationship with dear friends in Longmont. Thank you.
Good morning to all the folks there at Heart of Longmont United Methodist Church, and congratulations on celebrating your 150 years of service to the Longmont community. My name is Kevin Kimbrough, and my father, Barry Kimbrough, was the pastor there at Longmont, Heart of Longmont, from June of 1972 to June of 1986. 14 fine years, after which he continued to serve as a minister in Littleton, Colorado, until his retirement and then his death, which was in 2005. There's a picture of our family. This was probably taken about 1981, I think we figured on this one. Dad, Mom, myself, and my brother. Mom passed in 2008, and unfortunately my brother Terry passed also then in 2013. But I think Dad would say that the years in Longmont were the best years, the most enjoyable years of his career. A nod to the other associate ministers that served alongside Dad during those years, Richard Van Skyke, Howard West, Marilyn Lesser, Ron Page, and Skip Strickland. When asked to share any kind of a memory of the Longmont years, and we moved to Longmont again from Inglewood, Colorado, when I was going into my 10th grade year there at Longmont High School. I think Dad would just say the best memory, other than any one single instance, was just all the good people, the friends, the fellowship, the potluck dinners, the time spent with some wonderful folks, and the cups of coffee on a Wednesday night, even there at King's Food Host. So once again, congratulations to Heart of Longmont on your 150-year anniversary, and very proud and very nice that the Kimbroughs here will be able to be a part of this celebration. And thank you, Longmont.
Hi, I'm Keith Watson. I want you to know at the outset that my missing front tooth is not because of a pickleball accident. It was a planned extraction, and all I want for Christmas is my one front tooth, and I hope at least by Christmas time to have at least one less hole in my head. I served as a lead pastor at First United Methodist Church of Longmont from 1986 through 1994. And this was a time when our older daughter Jennifer was beginning at Skyline High School, and our younger daughter Melanie was beginning 5th grade at Spangler Elementary. I remember with fondness the fact that the youth ministry provided good nurture for our girls, and after Jennifer graduated, Marianne began a young adult class, and a time that she met a young man named Kent Solt, and they later became engaged and married, and from that have 3 wonderful grandchildren that go along with 3 grandchildren that Melanie has provided for us as well. We're grateful for those nurturing years for our family. I remember important events during the time that we were here. One was controversial as we began to make plans for an expansion of our almost non-existent narthex and narrow hallways into what is now the gallery area. It wasn't, everybody didn't agree that it should happen, but I think after several years of living with the new facility, I think that people agree that it was a great addition for our congregation. I also am very glad that several ministers and leaders of churches, mainline churches within the Longmont area, took what was a real need at the time of providing food for families in need and occasional lodging that was stretching all of the pastors in their capacity. And we began to talk about pooling resources in a community way, and that was the beginning of our center. And after many years, our center has become so much more than I think any of us envisioned at the time, but we're so grateful that it had those early beginnings during those years. After another 15 years after we left Longmont in various ministry settings in Glenwood Springs and Cheyenne, Wyoming and Colorado Springs, I retired from ministry and Mary Ann retired, and we chose to move back to Longmont and soon found ourselves involved again at First United Methodist Church that we now know as the Heart of Longmont. We're grateful for the time that we spend here. It gives us a chance to be nurtured in these years and also a chance for our service to the community through the church. And I look forward to celebrating this 150th anniversary with people of the Heart of Longmont.
Happy birthday, Heart of Longmont. You have every right to be proud of 150 years of service and ministry in the community of Longmont, across this land of ours, and clear around the world. My name's Granville Smythe. I did and still do prefer to be called Gran, G-R-A-N. And I was the senior minister at Heart of Longmont, then called First United Methodist Church of Longmont. I was a senior minister from the year 1994 through 2003. I have a number of memories of my time with you as a congregation. I always counted it a great privilege to be able to stand in the pulpit of that church and to proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ, crucified and resurrected, thereby revealing to all of us the amazing grace that Almighty God has for each of His sons and daughters. What a privilege, what a joy. Adult baptism was also a very special time for me. I can't begin to describe the joy, but also the ecstasy when an adult would accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and then would express the desire to be baptized either by sprinkling, pouring, or immersion. For a number of years, I taught the Disciple Bible Study, a 4-year class dealing with both the Old and the New Testaments. And again, what a joy to see individuals grow in their understanding of the Old and New Testaments, but also to grow in their Christian faith. You may not know and may not even remember, but for 3 consecutive years, the congregation ended the year with a budget surplus. And instead of putting the money into savings for a rainy day, the church council decided instead to give $30,000 each of those 3 years to our annual conference so as to help sister churches who, for one reason or another, were unable to meet their apportionments or their wider mission giving. This congregation has always given generously of her time, her talent, her treasure, ministering in many different ways, supporting missionaries, supporting Cat's Corner, the Hour Center, St. Vrain Manor, Warren Village, the United Methodist Committee on Relief, and the list goes on and on and on. Well done, Heart of Longmont. As God has blessed you, may God continue to bless others through you and your ministries.
Greetings from Manzanita, Oregon, where Connie and I have retreated and retired, and yes, that's the beach within walking distance of where we live. So it's not too bad of a life right now. Wow, it's been 13 years since I retired. 13 years with no microphone, 13 years with no people willing to listen to me ramble on. So I welcome this opportunity to come back and at least say hello. Congratulations on 150 years of spreading the gospel in Longmont. It's been quite a task, and I think you've done good, so congratulations. It's not easy being the church in today's age, but then again, I'm not sure it has ever been too easy to be the church. The Apostle Paul established a number of churches around his country, and some of them I think worked well, and yet some of them drove Paul absolutely nuts. 1 Corinthians was one of them. For in that, or the church at Corinth rather, in 1 Corinthians we learned that Paul had started the letter by praising the people, saying, I give thanks to you, to my God always for you because of the grace of God that was given you in Jesus Christ. Then he goes on to say, now I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, by the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you be in agreement. And there's no divisions among you, but that you be united in the same mind and in the same purpose. It has been reported to me by close people that there are quarrels among you. And he goes on to name them out. And finally, in the third chapter, he starts calling the Corinth church out for some of the things that they've done. And he chastises them severely to be the church. Today, it's just about like that. I guess it's always been difficult being the church. Some of us now want to take the name of church out because we hide the fact that we're a Christian fellowship. We want to be a family centered. We want to be most anything. But my 5 years with you there in Longmont, you were the church, and I loved you for it. You accepted anybody that came along without question, without even asking what their group might be. And in doing so, you didn't exclude anybody, made anybody feel less than worthy. You didn't take anybody for granted, and that was great. I loved you for it. I loved you for the staff you gave me. It was a great staff. You know, they loved me when I needed loving and forgave me when I needed forgiving, which is probably quite often. You were great, and I appreciate that. Peg, thank you for being the den mother. You gave me a great send-off. That pig roast was something special. Now I haven't really gone hog wild quite yet, but I'm working on it. If you're ever out in this part of the world, I'd love to see some of you. Meanwhile, enjoy the celebration. Have a good next 150 years. You deserve it. See you later.
I'm Reverend Dave Lilly. I'm speaking to you from Glenwood Springs, Colorado, where Carol and I now serve. It was my privilege to serve the people of Longmont and Heart of Longmont for 10 years, I guess beginning in 2008. As I think back over those years, the part that I want to sort of remember and commend is the fact that the people of the Heart of Longmont were probably some of the most courageous of any of the churches I've served in 30 years. It takes courage to be willing to make changes in yourself in order to do the work of Jesus. And the people of Longmont were willing to do that. The people of the Heart of Longmont were willing to do that. We looked very hard at mission and vision, created new outreaches to the homeless so that folks would not go hungry. There was just a lot of things that went on. Not all of them were popular, unfortunately. There are always folks who think that a church should be a country club instead of a church. And that's where the courage comes in. I guess my hope is 3 years after having moved on to the beauty of these mountains, is that sense of courage and calling and mission is still in place. And that you, as the people of the Heart of Longmont, are still engaging with the community and asking yourselves, what would Jesus do, rather than what would our members like? It's not easy to do. And it's probably, you know, as I approach the end of my ministry career, that's probably the thing that I'll remember most about the church, and maybe the most noble thing that any church that I ever served managed to accomplish. Congratulations on a long period of ministry. I hope it continues on into the future, and that the people of Longmont are blessed by the presence of the church. God bless you all.